Hey guys, Andrew Berg here. This is the fourth video in the Writing for Jazz Saxophone Section series. In this video, we'll be covering Drop-3 voicing. But first, if you haven't watched it yet, I recommend watching part 1 on block voicing because this is directly related to that. Alright, let's go. So we're going to be arranging Pop Goes the Weasel again. Before we actually get into the melody though, let's go and look at the chords. So, we're going to start off, we're going to be using a 2-5-1 in the key of G major for this. So that's going to give us A minor 7, D7, and G major 7. Let's go through the chord tones really quick. So for A minor 7, we have A, C, E, and G. For D7, we have D, F sharp, A, and C. And G major 7, we have G, B, D, and F sharp. Okay, so let's look at the different types of voicings we've already covered so far to see how they're all related and how they might affect one another. Okay, starting off with block voicing. For block voicing, we basically have the melody line up top, and then each note below that is going to be the next closest chord tone. So in this situation, we have a G on the melody, and then which is the 7th, and then we go down to the E, the 5th, the next note down, C, the 3rd, A, the root, and the bottom voice always doubles the top voice just down an octave. So for this block voicing on an A minor 7 with the G in the melody line, we have G, E, C, A, and G. Then we looked at drop-2 voicing. In drop-2 voicing, basically we took the second voice down, the E, and we dropped it down the octave. This helps separate it out a little bit so we have the melody line on top with this cluster moved down a little bit just to give it a little bit more of an open voicing and give that melody line a really distinct sound on top of everything else. Alright, the next we looked at was drop-2-4 voicing. So this one we drop the second voice and the fourth voice. So that'd be the E drop down to here and the A drop down to the bottom. Okay, so for this one, it really is a very open voicing. The lead line and the bottom line are both going to be very separated from the rest. We have one small cluster right here, and then this one's also separated out, so in general gives a very open voice to it. So let's look at drop-3 voicing. As you can guess, we're going to be dropping down the third voice down the octave. So that will be the C right here drops down to the C right there. And the reason I'm covering this one after drop-2-4 voicing. So this is kind of the most unique sounding one, I think, of the four. What I mean by that is drop-2 voicing, you still have this main kind of block cluster, it's just separated from that melody line. Drop-2-4 voicing, you don't really have any block anymore, but it's a very open sound, and it's very versatile, especially when you want to fill out that saxophone section. Drop-3 voicing is a little bit different than that. Drop-3 voicing is have one cluster at the top, one in the middle, and then this bottom voice is separated from the rest. The reason I say it's a different kind of sound is really because depending on what notes you have in the chord, you can have a small crunch right here, a small crunch right here, and then this note is kind of separated, kind of grounding that chord. So it's not necessarily used for everything. It's not one that you should just, as a blanket, just use it for everything. But it has some really cool textual purposes that you can use in different situations. Alright, let's actually go into the arranging now. Alright, so first thing we're going to do, like usual, is copy this down and place it in each of the parts below. Alright, then we're going to write in our chords. So we have A minor 7, D7, and G major 7. Okay, so now when we're looking at this, let's go through and we're going to leave this melody line the same, and we're going to harmonize the rest of it to work for a drop-3 voicing. Okay, so first thing I want to do is, as I showed you before, every single one of these has one note that's going to be the double of the melody line just down an octave. So for drop-3 voicing, we're looking for this G is going to be in the second from the bottom part, the tenor 2 part. So starting off, we can just take this tenor sax 2 part and drop it down an octave. So that one's just finished now. Okay, now let's go through note by note. For all the ones that are pairs, we're going to be doing them together. So for right here, the note below the G, if we look back over here, is an E, which is the 5th. So this one just drops down to the E. Now, in block voicing, we would go to the C next. Since this is drop-3 voicing, we will not be going to the C. We'll be going straight down to the A instead, which is this note right here. So taking this. So I'm just going to do it this way, A, and then down the octave. Okay, this tenor 2 part we already said is good, so the Bari sax part is next. The Bari sax part is going to have that missing C that we had before. So we're going to take this right here. So we're going to take this right here. And there we go. Okay, I also want to point out that we're in concert pitch for all of this. If you want to see what it actually looks like for the instruments and how they're going to be reading it, I can unclick that. And since tenor sax and alto and Bari are in different keys, we can see that altos and Baris are in the key of E, whereas tenors are in the key of A. Plus it's something to note that when you're looking at it, if it looks weird at all, it's because I'm doing it in concert pitch. I'm not doing it in a transposed score. That's just for the sake of the video, it makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so now we're going through this. The next note we have is A, which means this one, since this is the root, this will drop down to the 7th, which is G. And then we're going to be skipping the E, which is the 5th, and going down to the 3rd, which is C. All right, and that 5th that we skipped is just going down to the Bari part. So do that. All right. Now looking at D7, this B in the D7 is the 13th of the chord. So this next note down is going to go down to the A. And actually I can do this one as well at the same time. Okay, instead of going down to the F sharp next, we're going to be going down to the D, because again we are skipping the 3rd voice, we're dropping that down. All right, and then, so that means this one is going to be going to the F sharp. Okay, now we're going to be looking at this D on the D7, which means that this will go down to the C, which is the 7th. We're going to be skipping the A, which is the 5th, and bring this down to the 3rd, which is F sharp. And that 5th that we skipped is the A, which will go down to here. All right, so now we have this G, which is the 11th. So for the G, next chord tone below that is F sharp. We got down to F sharp. We're going to be skipping that past the D and going down to low C. And this one will go down to the D. Okay, for this last note in the D7 chord, it's actually the same as this middle note right here. So let's go and copy it, but just down an octave. So this goes down to the C. This one will be at an F sharp. And this one is going to be at an A. Okay, last note. So G major 7, we have a G in the melody line. This means the second line will be at an F sharp. We're skipping the D and bringing this down to a low B. And this D that we skipped is going to go right down to here. Okay, before we actually play it and listen to it, I want to make sure I point out something. I did something different than the past videos. So the past videos, anytime that we had an extension in the melody line, such as this B or this G, I instead chose to not have this second part be within a whole step of the first part. Now the reason I didn't do that for this is because, to me, this is one of the distinguishing sounds of a drop-3 voicing, is that we have this crunch. Alright, so you can see this B and the A have a little bit of crunch. There's only a whole step between them. And this D and the B, although they don't have a crunch, they are clustered together. Whereas this F sharp is now down about a 5th from the rest of the notes. Let's go back to the other chords really quick so I can show you kind of how this relates to what we first looked at. Alright, so you can see we have this G and the E clustered together, and then a 5th down we have an A and a G clustered together. 5th down from that we have the C kind of grounding everything together. So relating back over to here, again we have that B and the A, the D and the B, and then this F sharp in the bottom. In other voicings, I was talking about how we can move this tenor sax 2 part, instead of being on this B, to being on the C, for example, because now we're going to have the 1, 3, 5, and 7. That's the 1, 3, 5, and 7 all in there, with the melody line on top as an extension. The reason I don't like to do that with this exact example is I think the distinguishing sound of a drop-3 voicing, to me at least, is this kind of these two crunches that we can have with that Bari voice down a 5th from everything else. I think it gives a very distinct sound, and I think changing that away from that is going to kind of just change that sound that we're trying to get from using a drop-3 voicing. So again, this is not something you want to use for everything, but it is a really good thing if you want to get that crunch, want to get a little bit distinct sound every once in a while. It really does that job. All right, let's go and listen to it back. All right, cool. Thanks for watching. My name is Andrew Berg, and if you like this video and want to see more videos like this in the future, I'll be changing this up a little bit, and I'll be going, instead of just doing different kind of drop voicings, next we're going to be looking at doing 5-part spreads and other 5-part harmonies. So it could be a melody line on top with backgrounds underneath, it could just be spread voicings, could be looking at background figures in general. But I really want to dive further into this writing for a jazz saxophone section, because I think it's a really interesting concept, a lot of different ways that you can approach it, a lot of different ways you can do it. So if you like that, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified of the next time I post. One last thing, practice.